Welcome to Raising Those Spirits. I'm Steve,
And I'm Sam.
and our last opening was much more interesting, but we had audio issues, and this is a re record.
Hooray!
Hooray! I say that a lot more than I ever have now that I started watching Bluey.
Oh my god, Bluey's so good, right?
Bluey is so good, and them constantly saying hooray is adorable. So I'm going to start it off with a segue with that because I have, in the past recently with you, recommended Hilda,
You have recommended, that's true.
and Hilda is Bluey for the next age group up. It is such a smooth transition. I was watching it and I was just like, oh, this is just like Hilda for little kids. It's perfect.
Okay, that gives
Yeah.
me more reason to watch Hilda.
So I was just thinking of that as we were watching it, and I was like, I can mention that on the podcast.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I
So,
was wondering how long before there was a reason to talk about Bluey, because I absolutely love Bluey. It is my favorite of my kids' shows,
same.
bar none.
Yeah, bar none, it is my favorite thing that he watches. He's not the most interested in it, but he will definitely sit down and watch it a lot. So I'll take it. It is refreshing.
Yeah, we're a little off Bluey right now. She hasn't asked for Bluey. Sometimes we bring it up, and every now and like she still like will watch it with us. But I feel like we're having to push her to watch it now because we like it. Over the
That's
weekend, it was a lot of story bots. If you've seen story bots yet,
have not. That's kind of where we are, though. We're like, look, you're not 100% happy with anything, so we're just going to put on Bluey because we like it.
yeah, that's a good choice.
So we've been doing a lot of that, and I've been enjoying it. It's been a nice change of pace, and I guess we'll actually get into the episode because we shouldn't digress this early. I feel like it's.
No, because we can't digress in this early in the opening, or else like the whole nothing will make sense.
Yes, exactly. It's weird to cut, and it's already weird because last week we didn't have a digression at all. So
Hmm.
So this week we are doing spooky food is the topic, which you probably saw
Spooky.
in the title.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe we each read a book that we'll be discussing later, but first we're going to talk about what we've been up to since we last spoke.
Mm-hmm. What you been up to, Steve?
I have been incredibly sick literally since the night we recorded the last episode. So,
Hey, Vay.
yeah, I have been up to some, but not a ton. So,
Probably good that you take it easy while you're feeling sick.
yeah. A lot of my stuff is like weird wants. Like we have a yard service. I just with the baby and everything this year, I couldn't handle taking mowing all that grass because we have a few acres, and so I hired a yard service, and they're great, but they weed whacked a lot of the stuff that I've been growing because they don't understand what like little garden gates mean, like those little like fences that you put around your areas. So I lost all my
Oh
blackberries
no.
and stuff. I know. I was like, it's up against like a black wrought iron trellis. What about that screams to you weed whack here? So I'm looking into more noticeable, sturdier, like those little wrought iron, like graveyard style fences that are only like a foot and 18 inches tall that you put around your herbs and stuff in your garden for kind of a spooky look.
Hmm.
And I also, I didn't mention it, but for Father's Day, my wife gave me one of those, those little like gnome doors that you put in like hollows of trees and stuff like that.
Yes.
She gave me one of them, so I've kind of been walking around the property looking for a fun place to put that. And
Okay.
I
Those are
had,
fun. Do you see a lot of those a lot like Michaels and stuff?
yeah, yeah, she got me one off of Etsy that I really like. And I know I have trees for it, but I haven't been healthy enough to really explore the property, right? Also, while I was sick, I was couch surfing, and a show that always gets advertised to me popped up, and I wanted to ask if you've seen it.
Hmm.
It's like a baking show. It's like a Netflix spooky baking show called The Curious Creations of Christine McConnell.
Oh yeah, yeah. They did one season a couple of years ago. Yeah, I've checked that out.
How is it? It seems a little much for me.
Okay. So I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I actually watched an episode of this with my one of my other extracurricular activities. I do a horror movie club, and one of our themes was horror TV shows, and we watched an episode of Christine McConnell. It is, I would say, oh, how do I put this? It was so close to being good,
That's what
and I
it.
would say that.
That's the vibe I got
Mhm.
from the trailer. Go ahead though.
Yeah, no, I mean like the production values there, the stuff that she puts together is pretty incredible. The problems with it are the stuff that she puts together is not accessible.
Nothing that you could
Your
do at home.
yeah, your average at home arts and crafts slash like cook uh arts and crafts or like home cook or you're just your regular arts and crafts person is not going to be able to put these things together. They're just too advanced. They skip a lot of steps. They don't show you every step because they know that people are watching it to see her put these things together. Not really expecting again your average person to even attempt to put together what she does. What she puts together really is incredible. She puts out some amazing work. Everything from I'm going to try and keep it to just the Netflix show, but she also did a YouTube series where she put together some other stuff, and I think I'm probably going to mix up some of that stuff in my head. Does like woodworking, antique restoration, like she remodeled a whole house on her YouTube show. But yeah, I could never hope to put together the things she puts together. What she does put together is really cool. It's really incredibly spooky, but not accessible to your average person.
How about like
It
the
is Mhm.
how about the MST3K like Statler and
the
Waldorf aspect of it?
the puppetry. So okay, so yeah, it was put together by one of the arms of the Jim Henson Company. They're sort of like adult puppet arms, the same people who put out the Happy Time Murders, which I did not see, which was that
Mm-hmm.
puppet murder mystery movie a couple of years ago with Melissa McCarthy. That did not do well and got pretty bad reviews. I would say that the puppetry, the puppets themselves are beautiful. The puppets are really put together. It has one of the best werewolves I think I've seen in the last few years. The werewolf suit puppet.
Yeah, I'm
It's
looking at
really
that.
pretty. The characters can get a little grating after a while. Christine herself is not particularly personable. I think they needed the puppets kind of to be more entertaining because she's pretty flat.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
she ends up getting pretty overshadowed by the puppets. And at the same time, the puppets themselves are a bit much. If you just want to see the stuff she puts together, you probably check out her Instagram. It's definitely worth following.
These are all the feelings that I had watching the trailer because I took a sick day and I was just like on Netflix and my wife was like, this came on and we're every time it comes on we're kind of like, and she was like, you should watch this. You're doing a food episode. I was like, I should. This is very on theme. And then I never got around to it because I was just never in the mood. And I was like, I'll just talk about it.
Yeah. What was it in the first episode? I think it was the first or second episode. She puts together these cakes that look like other objects. I think they look like a coffee pot. She makes a cake that looks like a coffee pot, and it really truly does look like a coffee pot. It's beautiful. Again, they skip a bunch of steps. They don't expect that you're ever going to put together a pot shaped cake.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, still, it's
I'll check out her
check out an
Instagram.
episode. Don't get invested in it. There was a reason there was only one season, is what I would say
Absolutely
about the
fair.
show. She's a
Okay.
cool character herself.
Oh no, the stuff she made looked awesome. I was just like, I don't know if I'm gonna enjoy watching her do it. And you gave me a lot of good advice.
Yeah. If they ever did a second season, I'd probably still sit down and watch it because I really do love seeing what she puts together. She really puts together incredible stuff.
That's how I feel about my adult time conversation, but we'll get to that back at adult
We'll
time.
get to that when we get to adult time.
Yeah, something to look forward to. So, what have you been up to?
Well, I'm on vacation this week. Met up with my family out in the Berkshire Mountains of Western Massachusetts, out in the wilds of West Mass. Uh, and I got to engage in my very favorite spooky activity, which is antiquing. We talked a bit about how I collected antique keys for a while. What I did on this trip was I picked up a few old tintypes. You know what a tintype is? You familiar with it?
Is that for like print press type of stuff, but like for tin?
So a tintype is it was an early photography style where basically the image is printed onto a piece of tin,
Mm-hmm.
which is nice because they've held up much better than a lot of paper photography because it's on metal. And you can find them pretty commonly in antique stores, pretty much anywhere. I found a few that were photographs of little kids, so little kids, probably from the late 1800s, very early 1900s. So they're not even like particularly creepy photographs of little kids, but because they're on this really old photography style and are a little bit chipped and rusted, they have this really awesome spooky look to them.
Yeah, I'm looking
That
at a ton on Google. These things look awesome.
yeah, they kind of can't help but look creepy even if you were just looking at a regular photograph, if you're just looking at a regular photograph of this same subject matter, it's not necessarily creepy, but because of what it's printed on, it just is inherently creepy. So my intention with the ones that I picked up a couple of old tin types and another old photo. I'm going to try turning them into a shadow box with some of my old keys. I'm gonna wrap that into my old key project, and I think it'll be a really cool, just spooky Halloween decoration. It'll be kind of small because I mean they're tiny. They're maybe the size of four postage stamps, but it is a really cool spooky craft. If I ever actually get it done, I'll take a picture and put it up on our Instagram.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. These have you're right, they have like an ethereal look to them.
Yeah, they can't help but look haunted. And now I have them sitting next to my bed on my dresser. So hopefully those little girls in the photos I
Their
have.
souls didn't get stuck in the tin.
Yeah, I can't help but think that they did because they're so old now that well, even if these are little kids, they're almost certainly dead. Because these photos are from probably about 100 years ago. So the, even if they were little children, unless these people are about 105, they're probably long gone.
Nice. Nice use of vacation.
Yeah, I know. I got another half of vacation left, so who knows what I'm gonna find for the rest of this week.
Cool. Anything else?
No, that's what I've been up to.
No, that's fine. It's been a weird summer. I haven't gotten to do a lot of spooky stuff myself.
Should we talk about our cocktail adventures?
Yeah, so we also went out last weekend. Not this weekend that we just had, the weekend before. Right after we recorded the last episode, we went out and we went out to lunch, which is potentially where I got my chest cold. But I did find we went to a place where we always meet up with some other friends because it's kind of like halfway between both of our houses, an hour each way. And they have really good cocktails, though, which is one of the reasons we go there. And so I got instead of coming up with a drink for food, because I thought about maybe doing like a death by chocolate or something, and just kind of doing like a boozy food. I decided, we decided we're gonna just kind of go over some of the cocktails we've been finding in the wild recently.
Now that we're getting out in the world.
Now that we're seeing stuff, and all the mixologists have had a lot of time to come up with some really cool stuff, and we're finding it for you.
And bringing it back to you.
So, I at this cocktail garden that we were at, literally, I think just about every drink on the menu looked really good. Like it was like, ooh, I want to try that. Ooh, I want to try that. And it was like, oh, this is a problem. There's way too many of these, and they pour heavy, so I can have like one. But I'm gonna talk about one that we had, and then maybe throw out a few that like I think just look delicious. What about you?
Oh yeah, no, I'll do the same. I'll tell you. I can tell you three drinks I've sampled in the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So one of the places that my wife and I got out to while we were on vacation, we had a brief opportunity to get away from our child while they were with my parents. And we ended up at this restaurant called the Roasted Garlic in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. And I don't know if it's just because this was only the second time we'd been out to a restaurant in a year and a half, but this was the best meal I've ever had in my life. So I'm gonna pitch really hard for the Roasted Garlic in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. If you ever find yourself out in the Berkshire Mountains, what I ended up ordering was a strawberry mojito, which was rum, strawberry puree, lime juice, mint, and club soda. It was pretty good. I was happy to be drinking a very pink, sugary drink. It made me happy. But the one I really want to tell you about is what my wife ordered,
I
which was
saw that.
The Pedro Rita. Yeah, no, this is. She got the Pedro Rita, which is tequila, triple sec, lime juice, sour mix, topped with a mini Corona. What my wife didn't notice when she ordered it was it came from the section of the cocktail menu labeled bowls. The word bowls was in very light yellow text, and she didn't realize what she was ordering. So this is a fishbowl sized drink. Like legitimately, you could keep a goldfish in the drink in the glass that this drink came in, and it was fantastic because it was just a gigantic half beer, half margarita. And we were, like I said, this was one of the best meals I've had in I don't know how long. And a big part of it was just that we were able to get um pretty drunk. Or my wife did. I sobered up, thank you, before driving home. Very important to to drive safe. But it was pretty incredible. It was enormous. It was so enormous. It was the size of a person's head.
It was. It was an impressive picture. They both looked really good in the photos I saw.
Yeah, she didn't finish it. So I'll say that. There was no way that she could have possibly. I don't know that any person could. It was definitely like a two or three person drink. Um, it's like you go and you order a scorpion bowl at an Asian restaurant. It was it was a bit much. Another night we got out to the Five Horses Tavern uh, in Davis Square, Somerville, Massachusetts, which has always been one of our favorite date night spots. So it was one of the place. It was the first place we got back to when we felt comfortable eating inside of a restaurant. And the drink I ordered was the Cantina Turner. Nice little play on words there, which was tequila, white tequila, mango juice, passion fruit juice, lime, and spiced ginger syrup. They had the option of adding a shot of ghost tequila, which is, ghost pepper tequila,
Hmm.
which I declined because I don't like spicy drinks. I've found that they do not particularly agree with me, and they definitely don't agree with my stomach.
That's cool.
Yeah, those are the spirits I'm raising this week. Those were some fantastic drinks, and I can recommend both of those restaurants if you find yourself in this area, very very highly.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of spicy drinks, especially like Bloody Marys and stuff like that. People go like super extra Tabasco. I'm just like it's already like a weird meal. Where like if I hadn't done a Bloody Mary in a previous episode, it would have been perfect for this episode because it's basically a meal the way half the world makes it these days.
Yeah, Bloody Marys can be they can definitely get overblown. I think, and it's okay if that's what you're going for, but I think if I'm just getting if I'm getting a drink with my brunch and I want a Bloody Mary, I do like Bloody Marys an awful lot. But the idea that you're gonna put enough in it for it to be a meal is off-putting to me.
Yes. We've discussed this before, though. We discussed
We
this in the
have discussed it
vampires
before.
episode, I believe. Not the vampires. I don't know. Mother's Day? Mother's Day.
Mother's Day, our first episode.
Yes. So we went out, and my wife loves lavender. So she got a drink
Hmm.
called the Purple Rain. It is gin, lavender vodka, lavender liqueur, hibiscus simple syrup, and lemon juice. It was very refreshing on a very hot day. It is just a nice drink to just sit out in the sun. We were on a deck. It was like a deck bar, and it was just really nice for the ambiance. She was thrilled. She loves lavender. I mean, I'm not a huge lavender guy, but it was tasty. So if that's your thing, try looking up a recipe for a purple rain. I also found one called a pirate's booty, which I really wanted to get, but
Hmm.
I had to drive, and it sounded very alcoholic.
Oh, sure.
It is coconut rum, spiced rum, banana liqueur, orange juice, pineapple juice, cranberry juice, and then like a rum chata rum float type of a thing.
Yeah, that sounds like a bit much.
Yeah, I was like, it looks very good. I will be here for hours if I drink all of that. So what I settled for
Yeah.
was a Doc Holiday, which is huckleberry vodka, cranberry juice, lemonade, and muddled basil.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, that sounds really good. It is a hot summer day sip and drink. I cannot wait to go back and get some more of these because there's just everything on this list looks good. Like I took a photograph of both sides of the menu just so I could try and look some of these up and make them at home. But yeah, it's fruity slash sip and drink season, so mix up your favorite one and go sit in the grass or something.
I'm with you.
Cool. So should we get to the books?
Yeah, let's talk about some spooky food books.
All right. I'll go first if you
Hmm.
don't mind. I read
Oh, yeah.
because I don't have a lot of thoughts, but I've got thoughts.
Hmm.
So I read Cream of Creature from the school cafeteria. It
Oh,
was
it sounds tasty already.
it was written by Mike Thaler, who's famous for the Black Lagoon series. Um, he has a whole ton of books where it's everything from the Black Lagoon, the teacher from the Black Lagoon, the principal from the Black Lagoon, just everything in your day, the janitor from the Black Lagoon, everything's from the Black Lagoon. I've never read it, but I've definitely seen it around before. Uh, he's still writing to this day. He's been writing books since the 70s with his partner, Jared Lee Illustrates. Now, this was published in 1985, but there's a weird thing about this, Sam, and it really bothers me.
I mean, the title alone is a little troubling, if you ask me.
That's not my problem with it.
Okay.
So, I was researching through this because I actually found this book at a Scholastic book fair when I was in like second grade and I bought it. So, because, they didn't just used to have the Scholastic magazine, they had the whole book fair as
Our
well.
favorite.
I loved it, and I bought this there because this is for. It says grade two reading, but that is apparently preschool to fourth grade. Is what grade two covers.
Okay.
So that's all fine. I looked up to see what else he had done, and I went through his. What is a discography for a writer? Is there a specific name for this?
I want to say bibliography, but
But that's not it. That's not
that's not
right.
right. Publishing history?
I guess that just sounds not cool at all. Anyway, so I'm clicking through. I'm on his website. I am clicking through his things. 1985, Cream of Creature from the school cafeteria. Okay, keep going, keep going. 2012, Meatloaf Monster from the school cafeteria, and I'm like, did they make a sequel to this?
Hmm. Okay.
No, Sam. I think it's the same book. I think they updated the book and just changed it from. Cream to Meatloaf.
It's like literally the same book.
Like, but they redrew it and everything. It's so weird. So, okay, I'm gonna read you the tag of Cream of Creature from the school cafeteria. When the food in the school cafeteria takes on a life of its own and spreads out as a green blob eating everything in sight, the students find there is only one way to stop it. Meatloaf Monster. When the food in the school cafeteria takes on a life of its own and spreads out as a meatloaf that eats everything in sight, the students find there is only one way to stop it.
Oh, okay.
It's the
Huh.
exact same tag. They just replaced. Yeah. And I was like, okay, like did he break up, like partner break up with his the illustrator and he needed that? No, illustrated by Jared Lee. I don't understand this. Why is this a thing?
Did you look it up? Like, can you confirm that it is in fact like verbatim the same story, just with that slight change of it being the cream to the
I
meatloaf?
could not find a readable version of Meatloaf Monster and I wasn't willing to shell out the 550.
No, okay, that's reasonable. Okay, let's think. Let's think why that might be.
I
I think,
cuz
and I'm trying to keep this as a family-friendly show as much as I can. The title of the original book, Cream of Creature from the Black Cafeteria, when I hear that, it's a bit suggestive.
well, cuz they used to do like cream of type of meals, like cream of
No, I,
celery, cream of mushroom, cream like. But that's not a thing. So are they just modernizing it because they don't serve like creamed corn at schools anymore?
oh,
Because
that could be.
because
That's a bit more family-friendly than my thinking.
dietarily, I think just like kids don't eat cream corn anymore. That was like a stereotype joke when we were kids, but that's not a thing anymore. So, but meatloaf is. Meatloaf gets kicked a lot these days. So,
Sure, so it could just be a situation where the idea of a creamed based meal. See, the more I say it, the worse it sounds in my mouth. It's just so out of date that they had to change it, but they wanted to keep publishing the same book, so they changed it from cream to meatloaf.
yes. And like the art style's the same company and publisher because I was like maybe they somehow lost the rights to it, but like it doesn't from my research that doesn't seem to be the case. It's just weird. It's just something that
This is
bothered
such an
me.
odd. This is such an odd thing to stumble on because it seems so pointless. I know I've read cases in, let's say old comic books. Let's say early comic books. I think they used to do this with Legion of Superheroes. So, back in probably the 60s, 70s, they would do a run of a story and then they would basically run it again a few years later with some slight tweaks because it was before the people would hold on to their comics and read them again years later. So they figured they could just sell the same stories to the next group of kids because nobody was paying attention.
Yeah.
But why bother? Why bother with a published book? Obviously, they're going to have to republish a book over time. There'd be no reason to. Yeah, it's got to just be that cultural shift where cream based food is not something you'd expect to see. So to get it to work for the modern kids, you change it to meatloaf, which I like meatloaf. I guess I would never get meatloaf in the school cafeteria.
I looked up some Google images while we were talking, and it
Hmm.
is literally the same book.
We
Just
need to get this guy on the show and ask him why he. We talk about people we're going to bring on the show every week, and the odds we're ever going to bring on a guest are pretty good eventually. We're eventually going to do it, but we're probably not going to get this guy.
I don't know.
It's weird.
It's a weird one. It bothers me. It's the same exact book. There we go. The thing that really bothers me is you can still buy either. It's not like Cream of Creatures out of print.
It isn't,
No. No.
but you get like a new copy of the Cream of the Creature.
Yeah, right here on Amazon. Hold on, let me go to his website. I'm pretty sure you can just buy anything from his website. But I don't know, it's just weird.
I have so many questions about this.
right?
And the biggest question is why would you bother doing that? I wish.
None
Oh,
of
that
his
is
other
mind
books,
boggling.
none of his other books. I'm like, maybe I didn't look close enough. Maybe there's like a really racist character or something. I don't know. Like flipping through,
Okay, well,
nothing jumped out at me.
talking about the contents of the book. I mean, like, what happens in the book? What
Okay,
happens in the book that they might need to revise it for a new audience?
that's the thing though. They don't seem to have changed any of the plot. They just redrew it and made it a meatloaf. So the plot is it's lunchtime. That's actually the first page. It says is it's lunchtime. And so this whole class of students walks down to the cafeteria, and you can smell the food all the way down the hallway, and you can hear the food all the way down the hallway. And they open the cafeteria door and start to line up with their trays, and the food in the pot starts moving. It starts burbling and gurgling over the edges, and it grows. It's kind of like the blob. Like they do it kind of in the way of an old monster movie, except instead of it being the
Okay.
blob, it's just sentient cafeteria food. So it spills out of the hand and it starts going after the children and it eats the lunch lady, but she's actually the cook. I shouldn't demote her like that. It eats the cook as she tries to beat it back with her serving spoon. And so they run to the principal and it eats the principal. And they call the sheriff, and the sheriff shows up and shoots his gun at it, and it eats the bullets, and then it eats the sheriff. And they call the fire department, and the fire department tries to take it out with a hose, but it just happily takes a bath and absorbs all the water. So they call the army, who shows up with flamethrowers, and that just heats it up into like hot scalding food. And then they call the Air Force because kids have these kind of resources, Sam. And when kids call you in the military, you show up, and the Air Force drops bombs on it and absorbs all the bombs. And then they remember Mickey, which is, I think, a play off of Mikey from like Mikey Likes It.
Oh, okay. The old, what were those? Kicks commercials? Those kicks?
Chex?
Checks?
Maybe? Something like that? Life cereal? I don't remember. Yeah, so they call Mickey. Mickey's the only one who can save us. Mickey will eat anything, and they find him at the snack machine, licking it, I guess trying to get to the treats inside. And so Mickey calmly walks out into the courtyard area where the creature is on the playground. He pulls a spoon out of each pocket and sits down, and they have like a Wild West showdown. And the food spits
They
out.
found it. Wait, no. Go back. They found him licking a vending machine?
Yep,
Okay, they need to get him help.
we found Mickey licking the snack machine. We told him what had happened. He smiled.
No, Mickey needs to go see a professional.
Yeah,
He's licking a vending machine. I mean, ugh, just you disinfect him. Just
he looks like a kid that you would, as a parent of not him, want to disinfect before like he got in your car or anything.
that's upsetting.
Hmm.
So he's gonna eat the cream monster.
Yeah, so they have this showdown, and the cream spits out the cook and the principal and the army men, and they charge each other, and Mickey eats the entire thing up, and then asks for seconds. And then they give him a medal for saving the town and the school, and he eats it. And that's the end of the book.
That's a so that I mean like that's a disorder. He's not a hero. He has a disease and has been exploited.
I mean, maybe that's the theme.
Oh,
Even,
exploitation?
no, not exploitation. Even if you're different, even if you've got a disorder or something, you still have something to contribute.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so it's about unity.
It's
They
about
really need
unity.
to make sure that he didn't catch a disease from that vending machine. Or from the cream monster, which was probably rolling around the entire school. I just can't get my head wrapped around just how much dirt it would have picked up as it was going through the
I
building.
mean, it does not look clean as it gets bigger.
No, because it's gross.
Yeah.
Ugh. Man, stomach turning. Good pick this week, Steve.
Yeah, and
That's gross.
it's a giant green disgusting puke looking cream of whatever this creature is. So yeah, I
And
mean,
later, meatloaf.
hmm,
Eventually, it becomes a meatloaf, apparently, in later
eventually.
publications.
Yeah, I mean, I like meatloaf. I'd eat that. I would not eat this creature.
No. You gotta wonder what went into it.
Exactly. Like, what did this cook do here?
All right, well, thank you for telling us all about the creature from. What was it? The cream of the creature
Cream
from the
of
cafeteria?
cream of creature from the school cafeteria.
I hate that title. Um, it's so many C's. All right, well, I read The Stinky Cheese Man and Other Fairly Stupid Tales, which is by John, I can't pronounce this last name, Sieszka? Szizika? Szizika? I have no idea how to pronounce his name. We'll just call him Johnny S. And illustrated by Lane Smith. This book came out in 1992, so it came out when I was 7 years old. I had a hard copy of it, a hardcover copy of it, probably from around the first edition. It was one of my favorite books as a kid. My daughter received a copy of the book as a birthday present probably 2 years ago, and I've been waiting, just waiting for her to kind of be old enough to appreciate it at all. So I was happy to have it as an option for spooky foods. The conceit of this book is it's taking a lot of different old fairy tales and making them very weird, irreverent, and silly. The thing that I'll always remember most about it is the illustrations by Lane Smith. They are incredible, very, very out there, freaky sort of imagery from the early 90s. I have no way of describing it other than saying that it's a sort of early 90s kind of weird. You're probably familiar with some of Lane Smith's other work because it came pretty well known, I would say, in the 90s. The biggest example is I think his illustrations on Roald Dahl's James and the Giant Peach became the basis of the James and the Giant Peach character models for the movie. So that if that gives you some sort of sense of the Lane Smith's artwork. Otherwise, I'll be sure to post a couple of pictures of the book on our Instagram.
Yeah, I
But that was
distinctly remember this. It was really big when it came out when we were in like the second or third grade, I think.
so I used my favorite trick to get my daughter to sit and read a book with me if I'm having trouble getting her interest, which is I just sit on the couch and I'll start reading it to myself. And if she sees me doing that, she'll want in on what I'm doing.
Hmm.
And that works pretty well today. We read The Stinky Cheese Man, which is one of the stories that's in this book, but there's a whole bunch of other stories in the book as well. And it is a play on the gingerbread man, where instead of being made of gingerbread, the little man is made out of stinky cheese. And when he runs away and tries to get people to chase him, nobody has any sort of interest in chasing him because he's made out of stinky cheese. He eventually hops on the back of a fox who is supposed to swim him across the river. Because if he gets into the river himself, he knows his stinky cheese will fall apart. Again, similar to the original gingerbread man that it's taking its that it's a parody of. But instead of him falling into the river and dissolving, the fox chokes to death from the awful smell and sinks under the water, and the stinky cheese man sinks along with him and similarly disintegrates. It's the whole book is super weird. It's weirder than I remember it being, but it's a fascinating read. The thing I would say about it is I've never sat down and read any of the fairy tales that this book is parroting with my daughter. So I don't know that she would get any of that out of it. And I'm wondering, it's like, well, why haven't I like read The Gingerbread Man with my daughter, and I don't even know when I would have the opportunity to do it. I never even think about those old stories anymore. Yeah, have you ever read any of like the Grimm's fairy tales with your son, Steve?
I haven't read them with my son yet, but I definitely have them queued up. But that's kind of my. We've talked about this before. That's kind of my spooky shtick. Is I'm really into like the Grimm's fairy tale, dark fairy tale side of spooky, that fantasy spooky. Like even like my yard and stuff. I'm working with like the vines and the trellises and like the fairy gardens and stuff. I'm really into the Grimm's spooky aesthetic. So I
Yeah, but I just
definitely will be.
I realized I don't even have like a copy of a Mother Goose nursery rhyme book. And I
Oh,
feel like maybe I've also missed that period of time when I would have read those books with her. She's about to turn 4.
yeah.
Maybe I haven't, but I also don't know that I'd be able to hold her interest with those books because she has access to so much other media.
I remember we did a whole Mother Goose thing when I was in kindergarten. We had a whole big Mother Goose project, and we were still interested in it. So I feel like she's preschool. She's still good. You could still make it.
Okay. She could still get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, if this came out in '92, which means the earliest I would have read it, I would have been about 7 or 8 years old. That's a little older, that's older than she is now because she's about to turn
Yeah, that
4.
is twice her
So in the
age.
next, yeah, twice her age. So in the next 3 or 4 years, I suppose definitely we'll have the opportunity to read the old Mother Goose stories, but it's something that hasn't come up yet. And again, it's not even something I really think about. I don't know that I would even think about Mother Goose, or I don't know that I would think about Mother Goose if I didn't have this particular book on my shelf to remind me that I need to introduce her to the original versions of her these stories to get her interested in these silly irreverent versions.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Because you
I
also,
also didn't remember. Mhm.
I was gonna say, you pull from what you read as a child. So did you read that stuff as a kid?
My mother must have read them to me because my mother was a teacher. She was like a first grade teacher, so my mother was always reading us stories, and she was always, I think, using the stuff from her school with me and my sister. So yeah, it has to come up eventually.
Because, like, I grew up watching Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater.
Oh,
Now,
you've told me about this, and it is creepy and weird.
it was super creepy and weird, but it was all based on, like, Grimm's fairy tales and Mother Goose fairy tales. It was all, like, weird live reenactments of Jack and the Beanstalk and the Three Little Pigs and Red Riding Hood. And so I watched, like, a weird, creepy gothic version of those things all the time growing up. So, you know what I mean? So maybe find something like that and you can introduce her to it in that medium if she's into the live action type of a
Yeah.
thing. We should do an
Well, yeah, we
episode just
definitely
based
had.
on those.
No, we should. I'd be happy to visit those again because I remember I watched an episode of them when we were first putting this podcast together, and they were quite strange.
They are.
Definitely, yeah. Let's not give too much of a tease. It'll be a fun future episode. Another weird thing about this book, which I didn't remember from when I read it as a little kid, is there's a whole meta narrative going on where Jack of Jack and the Beanstalk is the narrator of the book, but at the same time, he's also seemingly acting as kind of the, I don't know what the word for this is, like the notes, like almost seemingly like acting as,
Annotating it?
yeah, I have a hard time explaining it. So, like, one of the first stories in the book is a take on Chicken Little, but the whole time he's arguing with Chicken Little because he hasn't gotten to do the the index yet. Like he's like, no, we haven't done the index yet. We can't. We're You're doing this, and we haven't done the index. We need to do the index of the book before we can have the story. And the messed up version of Chicken Little ends with the creation of the index. Like there's a lot of merit meta stuff going on in the margins of this book. Also, as the story goes on, like when we hear the tale of Jack and the Beanstalk, he ends up having a multi-story fight with the giant that ends with him trying to avoid getting turned into bread, like what was happening in the original Jack and the Beanstalk story. So I have a hard time even describing this book beyond saying, it's a parody of the Mother Goose nursery rhymes because there's so much other stuff going on in it that it is just a meta narrative weird. I don't know how accessible it even is to kids because I can't imagine how much I even got out of it when I was 7 or 8 reading this. I totally recommend it though. There's a couple of little problems, and I would say that some of the language from the early 90s is probably less accessible now. Like it has the story of the really, really, really ugly duckling. And I was like, that sounds a little insulting. And even the title of the book, Fairly Stupid Tales, I don't want to, tell other people what to do, but I try to discourage the use of the word stupid in my daughter's vocabulary.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's like, stupid's like not a great word. I don't like, yeah, I know it's not the worst word, but at the same time, like she'll start calling stuff stupid when she hears the word stupid a lot, and we've had to be like, okay, you gotta stop calling things stupid. That's actually really mean. At least the way that she was saying it. Kids are mean.
Yeah.
We need to curb kids from being mean, and stupid is really it's a go-to insult for little kids. I don't recommend. Yeah, what am I trying to say? Yeah, stupid is a go-to insult for little kids, and it's just a little too mean. Yeah, the art is gorgeous,
That
and I definitely recommend looking up the work of Lane Smith. The art is absolutely gorgeous. It is indescribable. Probably closest thing I could say is it's like a really amped up version of what you'd see in Ren and Stimpy. I think a lot of the parents from our generation probably familiar with that kind of artwork. I could also compare it to, and this is maybe even too obscure, Duckman. If you remember the artwork from Duckman, it reminds me a lot of that.
I can kind of see that. Yeah,
Do you remember Duckman at all?
I do remember Duckman, and I'm looking at the Stinky Cheese Man, and it's similar. I I think Duckman is more of a almost like it had that weird '90s Nickelodeon look to a degree, like Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Yeah,
And
I think we see a lot because we talked about a couple of different books from the 70s, and there's that very distinct 1970 children's book art style. Whereas I would say that there's also a distinct early 90s children's book art style, which this is the height of.
hmm
Just really exaggerated caricatures.
yeah, and going back to what you said earlier with it being mean, the '90s was like a strangely mean time. So I feel like a lot of the stuff that we pull from the '90s, because it was like that's how you were edgy back then.
Yeah, 90s edginess, looking back on it, is just mean. Like, it's just people being, like, mean to each other.
Yeah. Okay.
So, everybody chill out. Stop being 90s mean to each other. It's not cool, man.
It's not cool.
But yeah, again, I'll close out on that. Definitely recommend checking out the Sneaky Cheese Man, if for nothing else, just this really gorgeous, creepy, spooky artwork.
Love it. Okay. So I guess it's time for adult time.
Adult time. What are you doing with your adult time, Steve?
Not a lot these days, but I did finally finish Army of the Dead,
Oh, yeah?
which I think I said 2 episodes ago, like official episodes.
Hmm.
We had started, maybe even three, and I finished it, and I didn't love it, but It's just not what I wanted. Zack Snyder is, I think his stuff is beautiful, but it's also it's always so like weirdly depressing. Like you always lose the people you love quick, and B, I don't love things where like I'm fine where it's like a group of people go into a thing and have a really bad day. Like luck just doesn't swing their way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like one bad thing after another, but it's like environmental based or it's, this place is decaying and at that moment just, something fell and made a noise and they were found. But it's always like this guy's clearly evil. This person calls him out on being evil. He betrays them. They don't tell anyone else before they die, even though they're given the chance. It happens again. It happens again. It's always just like, oh, people are bastards and they cause this to fail. And I'm like, I don't want to watch that all the time. Like, if it had been like one or two of the reasons things went poorly, but it was like so much of the movie was just like, oh, if you guys would just remotely talk, you could solve this. Like, it's not them having bad luck and keeping the pacing going, which is more of like, that was like a big 90s thing. Like, The Mummy did that. Like, a lot of the movies like that where it's just unforeseen circumstances are driving and pushing you forward as opposed to just all the characters are dicks. And I don't really like my plot to move forward based on the plot relies on characters to be jerks for the plot to move forward, and it's just not what I'm looking for.
That's not. Yeah, okay. I get what you mean. It's the plot is moving forward because people are acting in ways people wouldn't typically act.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. And I'm like, there's other ways to make these things happen, but that's just what Snyder does. He's like, no, people are bastards, and they're making a sequel, and I will be watching it. Well, the thing I don't know. Do you know? Have you seen Army of the Dead?
I haven't seen it.
There's a big reveal that is not really a big reveal. Like they completely like they drop the knowledge and then do nothing with it, and that was also really frustrating. But they're gonna be doing a sequel, and because of the nature of the sequel, I will be watching it. It wasn't what I was looking for. I'm looking for like just like a mindless, fun action zombie beautifully shot because I think he makes beautiful things. I think he makes things look amazing. Tig Navarro was amazing.
Tara.
Yeah, Tig Notaro was amazing. Just a lot of it really worked. I just didn't like the way they did it this time, but next time maybe it'll be really good. Who knows? But that was my adult time. Otherwise, I haven't done a lot of spooky adult stuff. I've just been really sick.
No. Well, while you're recovering, let me recommend the podcast Mirrors, which was done by Zoom Doom Stories. Mirrors ran its 22 episode podcast series. It started in 2018 and it wrapped up in at the end of 2020. So it was definitely one of my COVID going nowhere, seeing no one. I listened to this podcast pretty much straight through until I caught up with it, and then as soon as a new episode would drop, I would have to listen to it right away. I don't want to give too much away about it because there are some big twists, but basically it starts as a ghost story told across time. So it starts as a ghost story where you're hearing one person in the past, one person in the present, and another person at some point in the future, and they're giving you little bits and pieces of an interconnected ghost story. And as the stories come together, it just goes in places you really wouldn't expect it to go. That's as much as I'm willing to give away about it, but it's just a really cool, very different, spooky story that you can get totally wrapped up in.
Awesome. Yeah, I haven't really
Highly
gotten to
recommend yours.
listen to any podcasts recently, which has been a bummer. It's been raining like nonstop for the last few weeks, and I typically listen to my podcast when I'm like working out in the yard and stuff.
Hmm.
So now
Yeah.
I've just been able to do it when I do the dishes, which is not making a lot of progress through my normal stuff. Hasn't given me a chance to jump into anything new and spooky. I also have not gotten to watch Fear Street Part 2 or 3, and that is driving me insane because I really enjoyed Part 1.
Yeah, I watched part one. I agree. I was totally into it. And I'm gonna try and finish watching the rest of the movies while I'm on vacation.
Oh, yeah, I'm really hoping to get into it this weekend because, I just loved it and I intended on doing it like immediately, and then life just did not give us the energy at night. But I'm really glad you liked it, especially after
Oh yeah.
me, worrying about overhyping it.
No, I thought it was great. Total worth watch. I mean, it's easy teen horror movie viewing. Check it out. Totally worth checking out. Goes down easy.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
All right. I mean, I know we've got a lot of dads digress, but I think we're running a little long on this one. So,
All right. Well, then we'll let everybody go. Have a lovely day. Thank you for listening to Raising Those Spirits. If you have any questions or comments for us, please reach out to us on social media. You can find us at RT Spirits Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
and please like, share, subscribe, comment. We'd love to hear from you. And also, that really helps other people find us and, get our word out and kind of build our spooky audience. And we'd always appreciate it.
Yep. And if you have any spooky food stories, please let us know about those.
Also, if you have any topics you think we could have fun covering or that we would enjoy, drop some suggestions. We're willing to look at stuff. We
We'll
have,
entertain.
yeah, we'll entertain. We'll add it to the list. Go out and do it. We'll end now so you can get to that. I'm Steve,
Get to it now. I'm Sam.
and keep it spooky.
Keep it spooky.